Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Let's Play It by Ear podcast with me, Carrie, and my co host, Joanna.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. Today, we're going to talk about getting paid, part two. So, we're going to delve into some discussion about our first jobs, part time jobs, and jobs that we've heard of our colleagues and our friends doing. But first off, let's start off with a little discussion, or maybe a slight debate. Let's see. Joanna, let me
Yes.
ask you, when you entered into music school, what was your ideal or your idea of what a successful musician would be?
Okay. So, I have to admit that even now I struggle with not thinking this way. Like, if I'm being completely honest,
Mm-hmm.
and because when at least my experience of being in music school told me that kind of the ultimate sign of success is if you get the highest chair in
Right.
orchestra,
Uh-huh.
and thus that kind of translates into what I thought the real world might be, which is
Okay.
that I have to win some sort of orchestral seat to
Mm-hmm.
be considered successful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and uh, I mean, if we're being really frank here, I don't really do that well in orchestral auditions. I've done them before, and I have done a professional one before, but it, I I know I don't do well in it. I know that it's not my strength, and that
Okay.
terrified me. And I think because I knew this for a long time that
Mm-hmm.
orchestral auditions terrified me.
Mm-hmm.
And so uh, it just never felt like it was my strong suit. It just kind of always felt like I was fighting an uphill battle. It was not something that I took pleasure in. Even though the act of being in an orchestra is thrilling, and I just love the feeling of sitting, the two of us, bassoon
Mm-hmm.
and flute, we sit in the middle of the orchestra.
Yeah.
And so we get to hear everything around us like surround sound, and it's amazing. So, like, being part of a big group that does that, the actual action of being in that group is amazing,
Mm-hmm.
but the process that it takes to get in the group is, to me, completely terrifying. It's just something that I know that it doesn't vibe very well with me. So but I thought that that was what I had to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's actually why I fought tooth and nail to get into the performance major, as we have talked about in previous episodes.
Right.
But I didn't, how do I put this? Like, you know, I thought that I had to do that so that ultimately, whenever I am applying for an orchestral job, that
Mm-hmm.
like I had to have the resume to back it up. Like I had to have that bachelor's of music in flute performance to back it up.
Right.
Right. So it basically everything to do with auditioning
Mm-hmm.
in my life has always felt like an uphill battle. Yeah, basically that left me completely terrified of what I would do for a job. And there was also this idea that part of being successful as a musician, as at least as a classical musician, it took me a long time to realize I thought this way. But I realized that for a long time, I've been thinking that my success depends on what other musicians think of me.
I share that point of view.
Right? And like,
Yeah.
I think the moment when did I realize this? I think I only realized this sometime in the last few years, something like that. It's a
Mm-hmm.
fairly recent realization for me, realizing that I based my success on how successful other musicians thought I was. And add on top of that, I thought that other musicians would measure my success based on what orchestra I'm in or what chair I'm in the orchestra. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that was, I guess, the myth, like my myth of what it meant to be a successful or to have a successful career as a musician. Mm-hmm. But in truth, I was terrified of it. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so that's my myth. And I'm being completely raw and honest here. What was yours? Did you have an idea of what it meant?
I share a very similar myth, mm-hmm. I guess, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah.
I thought that, like you said, being a successful musician is winning a position in an orchestra. I didn't exactly think that it had to be first chair, though. Maybe because for me, I would prefer playing second. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think. I mean, it just suits my personality a lot more.
Yeah.
Not that I would shy away from playing first if given the chance.
Right.
So yeah, I just thought winning a chair and winning tenure, I guess, basically in an orchestra, that is the epitome of success as a musician.
Yeah.
And on top of that, like you said, what other people thought of you, I thought that if I could show people or if people knew or they heard of how many performances I was doing in a month, how many performances I was doing engaged in a year, like as busy as you can be, always in demand and have to turn down gigs or turn down opportunities, it's like you've hit the mark there. You're successful. But
I feel that viscerally.
Yeah, I think thinking about, like, really sitting down and thinking about that now, it's
saying that out loud is really cringy, isn't it?
It actually, I don't know, to me hearing that, I just feel like, wow, you're kind of stupid.
I mean,
not that it's not a good definition of success.
Yeah,
sure, it may be someone else's definition of success that they can easily attain it, no problem.
Right.
Well and good for them.
Exactly.
But maybe for me, for us, it's a combination of that maybe and something else.
Yeah.
So that's what I've come to realize.
You know, you bring up a good point. Now that we're saying it like that, it has just struck me that essentially we have been trained to almost crave workaholism. Like that you're only successful if you're a workaholic.
Or actually, that's a very good point you raised too. It feels like you are only worthy.
Yes.
Based on how much
you work.
You are hired to play or perform. If you're not active in the circuit, if you're freelancing, or if you're not engaged with an orchestra, then your value
tanks.
Plummets.
Yeah. Oof.
That's very devastating, actually, to a young musician.
It is, because, you know, we are constantly trying to find work, right? And constantly trying to fill our schedules, and constantly, because it's not just the making money part. I mean, that is true. It is hard to make money as a musician. But we're creative and ambitious, and we find our ways.
Yeah.
We all do. I don't think that anyone would choose and stick with the path of being a musician if they were not in some way, shape, or form very creative and very ambitious. Okay? I mean, the two of us are Slytherins, and it's very apparent in how we...
Go figure.
Right? Like, it's very apparent in how we've chased our dreams, right? But... you know, at the same time, what I realize is that as much as I needed the money,
Mm-hmm.
I was actually more concerned with how people saw me
Mm-hmm.
over how much money I made.
Yep. Me too.
Which is, now that I'm saying that out loud, is really strange for a very much broke musician to be more concerned about the way people see you over how much money you actually need to make to pay the bills, you know?
But can we say then that this is a product, or we're a product of the field? Because from our education days, from our schooling days, we're taught to, in a way, subscribe to someone asking you to play, to perform,
Yeah. Yeah.
regardless of whether or not it's paid. You take it
Yes.
because it's experience, and you need that experience.
And the exposure.
And the exposure, exactly, to bump up your worth,
Yes.
your value, and therefore make you more marketable to hopefully higher paying gigs in the future. So I think,
You're almost selling yourself.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like, even if we didn't make money off of that, it's okay. I
Yeah.
got paid in experience and exposure.
And people know me now.
Yeah. Like getting your name out there.
Right? Yeah. Oh my God. The term getting your name out there is huge in the classical music world.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, it does, I think the side effect of it is that it promotes this idealized, this ideal of being a workaholic, that being a workaholic is a good thing.
Yeah. Or a struggling musician.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. The struggling musician, the broke artist, you know?
Yeah.
There's a weird kind of glory in it, even though if you really think about it, there's nothing particularly glorious about it.
No.
Like once we really think about it, right, from like sort
Yeah.
of an outside the bubble perspective, it does make me question a lot of like, why did I value that so much back
Yep.
then? You know, like why did I value so much of what other people thought of me when I wasn't even making the money
Yeah.
for many of the times?
You're right.
Like who cares what they thought of me? I didn't make any money. They're lucky I even showed up. You know what I mean? Like that's actually how I should have thought of it, right?
But no, we're not taught to think that way. Or
No,
like,
yeah,
those
exactly.
around us,
Yeah.
like,
Dang.
'cause what we were shown,
Yeah.
I think, or what we experienced, it's been flipped upside down. It's been
Yep.
twisted
Yep.
and presented back to us in a way that this is what you need
Yes.
in order to make it. This is what you need to go through.
Yes.
But we never really stopped to challenge that. We never really stopped to ask and say,
No.
is this really the only way to go about it? If it's one of the ways, sure.
Yeah.
Let's explore it and see where it leads us. But if there's
Yeah.
something else, maybe we want to try that.
Exactly. Yeah. It definitely like, at least like my experience of the classical music world, and I hear that it's changing now, which is fantastic. But I had definitely experienced this sort of my way or the highway kind of attitude in the classical music world, which is kind of like upon further reflection, I do think that my thinking that I had to get an orchestral position to have any value in the classical music world, like I think that's part of where that comes from, because I mean, you're nodding your head too at my description that the definition of success in a lot of classical music school circles, at the very least, is that you win a position in an orchestra after you graduate.
Yeah, because that's advertised on their website. Our alumni
Yep.
have gone on to play in or hold positions in blah, 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 blah orchestras in blah, blah, blah countries or cities.
Yep. It's kind of
But
wild to think about, actually.
Yeah. It's a very, very narrow viewpoint that we've been presented
Yeah,
in terms of success. Because there's so much more that you can do,
exactly.
but it still falls under the umbrella definition of a musician.
So like right now you are working with the Vancouver Academy of Music.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like, did you get any sort of random thoughts in the back of your mind that it's like, oh, like, is this enough to be considered a good working musician?
Yeah, I know.
You did get that
At the back of my head,
in the back of your head?
of course.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, I mean, I'm
Because I
I'm
feel like
reacting that way because I feel the same too
yeah,
about my
because that
jobs.
stereotype is it's so deeply rooted in me
Yeah.
that anything short of an orchestral position or a tenured orchestra position, it feels like I'm falling short of expectations.
Yeah. It's like,
But the opposite is true.
like, my question is, where does that attitude come from? Because clearly the both of us are feeling it, right? We've never talked about this before. Just so our viewers and our listeners know, we've never talked about this before.
And if you feel the same way as us, please let us know.
Yeah, please let us know. But like, we're both experiencing this, and we have experienced this for a long time. Mm-hmm. I very, very vividly remember people's attitude towards like an orchestral librarian or someone working in the music school library, or someone working admin stuff for an orchestra, stuff like that. It's kind of weird because some people very much value their work and understand how important their work is. So I'm not talking about those people, but there's definitely a group of people who see those people in those positions as failed performers.
As subpar.
Subpar, yeah. You feel that too, right?
Yeah, and I've heard, I don't know if it's still around, but I think I've heard this saying before. Correct me if I'm wrong, or if I've twisted it somehow. Those who can't perform teach.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that exact quote.
Yeah.
That exact
That's
quote.
so wrong too.
Because performing and teaching are actually two wildly different skill sets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's a wildly different skill set, and also you're working with wildly different people.
Yep.
Your audience as a performer are very different from your students.
Yeah. Supremely different expectations too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like, for the one, you're entertaining them.
Mm-hmm.
For the other, you're literally guiding their journey on learning the instrument that you're teaching them. So like, oof, our myths are pretty bad. And if we're being completely honest, it sounds like we're both struggling with it still.
Right? I admit, yep.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, for myself, if I can share a little bit, I feel somewhat validated when I get to freelance.
Yeah. Yep.
Simply because I do play professionally with like different orchestras.
Yep.
I don't have a tenure position, but I get to work as an extras player. I think that's what they call it.
Yep.
So yeah, I do get to perform with those orchestras or with those ensembles.
Yeah.
But like when I'm not doing that kind of work, there's a part of me that feels like, oh no, I need to do it all over again to prove myself. Like my self-worth just plummets after that last gig, and I know there's a break in my calendar. I don't know if that's healthy at all, actually.
I don't think so either, man.
Yeah.
I mean, for our listeners, I am nodding my head not in approval, but in solidarity, because I feel exactly the same way. I have had recently to make the very tough decision to leave my orchestra. A lot of people don't know this. but I'm just going to say it here for those of you who care. I had to make the very tough decision to leave my orchestra. There were a lot of factors in it, but I would say that the top factor was that it was actually legit eating into my time to teach.
Mm-hmm.
And I earned more money through teaching. You know, it'd be like that, right?
Yeah.
So I think like the conflict that I had inside of me is exactly what we just talked about, right? I actually need the money. So in terms of just thinking about financially what I need to do,
Mm-hmm.
I need to pick up more students in the time that I would have been rehearsing.
Mm-hmm.
I should. I lose out on literally hundreds of dollars. You know, if I attend the rehearsals instead of teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, you know, kind of doing a bit of mental math and being like, it makes absolutely no sense for me to continue with this orchestra because I kind of need the money. You know, bills, you know, and food
Right.
and, you know, whatever, right? And but the conflict, man, the inner conflict of like, what will people think of me? I no
Yeah.
longer hold any position in any orchestra now. I kind of made a mad search for like in hopes of finding an online orchestra that I could be a part of.
Oh, wow.
You know, because I was trying to fill this hole in
Mm-hmm.
with this perceived hole in my heart of like, I need to be part of a group
Yeah.
because it somehow identifies me as like worthy of being a professional musician.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized I might be pursuing those other like orchestras, you know, those other orchestras that I was looking for, maybe for the wrong reason. So I stopped looking because I was like, I think I kind of need to fix myself first. You know, like I don't think it's healthy for anyone for me to waltz into a new orchestra and be like, please love me, you know, please value me, please, you know, acknowledge my professionalism, you know?
That's the beginning of a toxic relationship.
It is, right? Especially now that we're saying it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm realizing how toxic it is, as you say. And yeah, I had to do that recently. And ultimately I was like, no, like push comes to shove, I need the money. I mean, when you put it like that, the decision that I needed to make was very clear, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's why I said that this is actually a myth that I know I've had for a long time. And if I'm being completely truthful, I'm still wrestling with it. I know it's wrong. Yeah. And I know it's not right. I know it's not true.
As do I, but doesn't make it any less of a struggle.
No, it is a huge struggle because after that, what I had to do was, you know, yes, I'm listing out what I do as a musician, which is, you know, reviews with the Flute Center of New York. You know, I do, you know, I teach online and I practice on Twitch. Those are the three things I do now, you know, like, and I do all of that professionally. So I've been listing that as what I do. And it's been really freaking weird to not put an orchestra in there, if I'm being completely honest. It's been very strange. And it's taken a lot of me just repeatedly writing that out or, you know what I mean? When, you know, like we had to make our own website, you know what I mean? For this podcast. And, you know, when I put it there, I was really kind of like, oh man, it feels so weird to not put an orchestra in there, you know? And I think it was good though, because I think in a weird way, it was a great exercise for me to sort of distance my self-value from a position in an orchestra.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know really what the world is going to be like by the time we release this,
Mm-hmm.
but at the time of recording, the world is still currently experiencing
Mm-hmm.
COVID-19. And as a freelance musician, a lot, not a
Yeah.
lot, like most of my gigs, 99.9% have gone. And that has
Yeah.
really forced me to just sit down and kind of reevaluate
Mm-hmm.
who am I?
Yeah. Y-
Like, am I still a musician if I'm not actively
Yeah.
performing with
Yeah.
orchestras,
Yeah.
be it voluntary
Mm-hmm.
choice or through restrictions?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, when gigs come back,
Yeah.
hopefully they do.
Yeah.
Like, then I feel that dilemma and that struggle, that tension, it's just going to resurface again.
I think the word tension is perfect to describe how it feels. It feels a lot of back and forth in my brain, right? Of
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
I am worthy with what I'm doing right now, right? Like, and I'm happy. I like what I do, right? And then the
Hmm.
other part of me is like, but you're not part of an orchestra. People won't think you're a real musician, you know? Ugh.
Yeah, then it comes to the point, I think it's so hard to do though. Easier said
It
than done,
really
of course.
is. Like I'm obviously still struggling with this. I
Yeah.
think you guys can probably tell from the way that we're talking about this that we're both very much still struggling with this.
It's painful.
Yeah, it is. And no one freaking talks about it. We
No.
haven't
So
talked about it with each other.
let us talk about it. I think it comes to a point where we actually have to recognize that it's not what other people think about us.
Yeah.
Again, easier said than
Yes,
done, of
of
course.
course. Yes.
But it's what you enjoy
Yes.
doing.
Yes. Like, is it fulfilling? Is it something that gives
Hmm.
you energy? You know, like, I'm really glad that I didn't pursue a like top level professional orchestra. Because honestly, I think I just would have burnt out and quit. Like, it that particular path for, you know, classical music profession,
Hmm.
I don't think it would have ever fit me. There's no way.
It's
Yeah,
relentless.
I have to put my pride aside and just very much confront the fact that I do not have the mental capacity to do it. I
Hmm.
don't. I will go crazy, you know? Like, I will go
Yeah.
crazy, and I would probably have never met John, my husband, and would probably be so depressed that I would just be at home in my room at my parents' house. You know,
Yeah.
like, I likely would end up not being able to support myself if I went down that path because I know how
Yep.
depressed that I would be,
Hmm.
right? But at the same time, it doesn't mean that I've completely divorced my thinking from this like very pervasive kind of ideal of what it means to be a classical musician. You know,
Yeah.
like, I'm glad I didn't go down that path, but at the same time, I still struggle with that decision.
I hear you.
Yeah, yeah. So,
I'm glad I didn't go down that path either.
mhm.
Um,
like we want to make it very clear to our listeners that this is just for us. Like,
yeah.
we know ourselves, and we know that the two of us would go crazy.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if you're listening to this and that type of life is enthralling for you and gives you so much energy and just delights your life, then please do it. For our sake, do it. We need more people like you guys. Okay? But for those of you who do feel like us and know deep down inside that that life would drive you crazy, well, at the very least, you've got the two of us sitting here in solidarity with you.
You know you're not
Yeah.
alone.
Anyway, I just
For
wanted to
those,
make that clear, just
yeah.
so people know that we're not like crapping on the path to becoming an orchestral musician. It just really is not for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, for those of you who are looking to pursue that path, make sure you still are taking good care of yourself, though.
Yeah.
That way you can go even further.
Exactly.
If you want to.
Because you don't want to burn out either. Like, anyone can burn out, right?
Yeah.
So, oy. But your first job, though, as a musician.
My first job.
So, like, well, we talked about first paid gig last time, right? How about, like, a job? Like a paid job that's not exactly a gig.
Yeah. I can't remember if it's, like, I don't remember which one happened first, so I'll say it's a tie between two. Teaching at a studio, and working as an usher for school.
Yes.
/ very informal box office.
It was like a little table.
More of an usher, though.
It was like
a little table.
So cute. I loved it. It's a little folding table right in front of the recital hall. Yeah.
It's good, though. It's actually, I really enjoyed that work.
And that's important. We
people.
need people to do that.
Yeah.
Like, these concerts would not function without people doing those jobs. You know?
I just actually going on a slight tangent here. I had a thought last night that all of the jobs that exist right now in the world, we can't do without a lot of them. No matter what you think about someone who, I don't know, say like cleans something or stocks shelves, or is a teacher versus is a professor or a scientist, doctor, undertaker. Everyone plays an essential and important part in society.
Yes. Those shelves are not stocked. You ain't getting your product.
Yeah.
That is not a lowly job. You know?
It's important. It keeps the world going around.
Yeah.
So yeah, box office, people, ushers, they help the concerts run smoothly.
How did you get that job, by the way? Like, did you have to apply through the front desk office, or? I
think so. I really don't remember.
It's been so long.
Tells you how old we are. Yeah. I think they put out a call for students who want work.
Oh, right. That's true. They will send out emails and stuff like that.
Yeah, like, this is a list of the jobs that you could potentially take up. Like, which one interests you? What sort of experience do you have or don't have but would like to gain? I think I
regret not doing that. That's actually one of my biggest regrets of not doing something in school. Was not taking up the non-playing gigs. And I'm gonna be, or jobs, that is. Like, I'm gonna be completely honest with everyone. I was too lazy to do those jobs. I'm being completely honest with you, okay? Like, I would see how much they would pay, and I would be like, nah. You know, like, I was so lazy. It was laziness more than anything. So if I could encourage any music students listening to this podcast, don't do what I did. Don't be lazy, okay? Do that ushering job at least once. Do that box office job at least once, okay? Do that librarian job at least once. I didn't do any of those things, and I'm being completely honest with you. I regret it so much. I regret not doing any of that. And it was because I was lazy. It would have been fun to work with. I know, it would have been so fun to work with you. Yeah, I regret it because I was just lazy.
I don't completely disagree with you. I think the money that we were getting paid, I mean, yeah. But like, when you're a student, to me, I feel like, any money that's coming in is money. It's going to make a difference. But I think at the back of my mind, I was thinking it's not a whole lot. And maybe that's why I supplemented it with teaching.
Mm-hmm.
But I think also because of the different instruments that we
Yeah.
play, flute, I think it's relatively easier to get students.
That is true. You are right.
As a
Yeah,
bassoonist, good luck.
that's true.
I'm lucky enough that I play piano as well and I can teach
Right.
piano.
And you can get lots
But
of
back then,
piano students. Oh,
yeah, back then bassoon, zero,
yeah.
none.
Yeah. I hardly heard of any of you guys having very many students. I think the most that I heard that someone had was like 3 students. Something like that. And that was considered a lot
yeah.
for a bassoonist.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the flute, we get a lot because school bands always have way too many flutists. So, so yeah, like you're right. Like that's why in terms of paid jobs that were not playing gigs, it was teaching. It was 100% teaching. Like I only did teaching because in my mind, again, you guys have to remember, I'm lazy. Okay. You know, you look at how much you get paid for half an hour of work teaching a kid. Compare it with how much we get paid if we're doing like orchestral librarian at school or whatever. Like if you compare the time spent to how much money you earn, like for me, my lazy brain was like, of course I would only do the teaching. That, like, I'm being super real with everyone here.
It makes sense though.
That was my logic. But I have to admit that right now, years later, I have this huge regret that I did not, you know, while I was a student, that I did not try out ushering for, you know, a bit, that I didn't try out, you know, doing the box office tickets, that I didn't try out, you know, doing orchestral librarian and stuff like that. And like I would say, like now that I think back to it, I kind of, there's also another aspect as to why I didn't do those things. And that is completely personal to me. I don't know how many of you guys know, but I am a pastor's daughter. And I, you know, grew up in church. I still go to church. Well, now we watch church from home because pandemic, you know. But I did a lot of those things as a pastor's daughter in a church setting. So definitely did. I was like an usher for every week for like when I was pretty much a child actually, into my like early teens and like later on as well. So I did a lot of ushering in church, and then I did a lot of, you know, any type of like collecting things. So kind of like box office type stuff.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of organization of stuff because my family was, you know, very involved in running the church. And so there was a part of me that was running away from those types of responsibilities. And so on a personal level, I do kind of understand why I would shy away from doing those types of jobs, even though now I regret not doing them. But I do recognize that I was dealing with a lot of stuff back then.
Yeah. Well, you had a lot on your plate and a lot going on in your life too.
We all did. I mean,
can only handle so much.
We're still very much growing, you know. We have mentioned, I think, in this podcast that our brains don't really actually stop developing or growing until we're like 25. And when we were in music school, it was between the ages of the tail end of 17 to 21.
Actually, we weren't 21 by the time we graduated. Wait, were we?
I think we were. We were.
Sorry.
So, 17 to 21. So we definitely were still growing, developing. We were not yet fully matured yet. So,
oh no, not
yeah.
even
So
close.
I definitely look back and recognize that a lot of my actions and decisions were very immature and very impulsive and very lazy. That's me. I suffered from a lot of laziness back then. So, I think now that I do rely on my work to earn enough money. Now I really can't afford the time to do like orchestral librarian stuff, to do admin stuff for an orchestra, to do, ushering, box office stuff. I really don't have the time now because that stuff would seriously not pay as much as I could earn with a student, right? So, I wish I did those things when I was living with my parents and I could afford to do cheap jobs, if that makes sense, right? Because now I can't afford to do cheap jobs. That's kind of my thought process right now. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, now we also have to make sure that our jobs are paying us enough so we can survive and take care of our families. But also that allows us to afford time to ourselves.
Yes.
So we don't burn out, like you said. We can take time off. We can take days off.
Oh, work-life balance though, man.
Yeah.
That was...
What have you learned about that since uni to now?
So, I will say that a large part of my decisions for how I arrange my schedule has to do with the fact that I do teach students from other time zones. So I have a level of flexibility that I think a lot of people did not realize pre-pandemic. So I already have been teaching online exclusively pre-pandemic, which a lot of people thought was very strange. Now, not so much. Now I have the opposite reaction and people are like, wow, did you have to turn to online teaching? I'm like, no, I've already been doing it for 7 years, you know?
Wait.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, and it was kind of funny because like people are like, oh man, so you've been prepared. And I'm like, yeah, this has basically been my life for the last 6 years, pre-pandemic. It's now been a year into the pandemic here. So 7 years now. But it was definitely, So part of it is time zones. So I can arrange my time in a very interesting fashion where I can basically actually start teaching at 9 a.m. And I can end teaching at around 7, something like that. Now, I used to be able to take a lot of students. So I used to be able to take about 6 or 7 students in a single day. So we're talking teaching for 6 to 7 hours, which I think when I was younger, I could do it and I had the energy to do it. We're both now in our early 30s. I can't do it.
You feel the change?
Yeah, you really feel the change. Like I can't do it anymore. I was taking up to 6 students a day up until last year. And in December, I had this experience, December 2020, I had this experience where I took 6 students in a single day. And I spent the next 48 hours recovering from that. Like, I felt like I pulled an all-nighter. That was how I felt. And I didn't pull an all-nighter. I slept kind of your typical 7 to 8 hours. Probably more. And the next couple of days were lighter. I only had 1 or 2 students per day in the next 2 days. But I literally couldn't do anything else. I couldn't edit. I couldn't... Like, I literally, brain fog, basically. Just could not do anything. And so I was like, I have to change this. So starting in 2021, I was like, guys, I'm only taking 5 1-hour slots of students per day. And I was like, I explained this to my students, and they're like, yes, we support you. So I'm very lucky that everyone is super supportive. Just this month, though, so as of recording this, it is currently March 2021. And I discovered that because what I was trying to do was allot myself an hour of video editing per day. That was a colossal failure. You cannot video edit like that, guys. You cannot video edit like that. The way that you video edit is through like full immersion. You know, you need to just be at the computer for like hours at a time, and it's an immersive experience. So that's where you can really get creative with the editing. And I couldn't do any of that. It was just a colossal failure, this attempt at this new schedule. So what I've done now is I've realized by looking at my schedule that I actually won't lose any money if I shuffle all of my students to Tuesday to Friday. So I have now shuffled all of my students Tuesday to Friday with a maximum of 5 hours a day, and I'm not losing any money from it, but it also allows me all of Monday to do my creative work. So it's not that I'm not working, but I'm working on other creative things that are not teaching. Right. So like maybe I can do live streams with other creators. I can work on my own video edits. I could, you know, any sort of creative thing. Like I could just do it on Monday. And it was just like, oh, such a sigh of relief. So this leaves Saturday and Sunday. I keep those days as pretty sacred to me. I don't do any work on those days because if I do, I will burn myself out almost immediately. And John, my husband, is really the guy who made it very clear to me that I really needed to unwind. I hadn't even heard the word unwind used so often as how my husband uses it. He really places a lot of importance on unwinding. So after a day's worth of work, he's always like, we got to unwind, right? We got to have a good meal, and we've got to, you know, have like a nice tea or something. Every now and then we might have an alcoholic drink that we'll mix for ourselves. And then we'll play video games and we'll watch YouTube videos. We'll watch Twitch streams and just stuff that has nothing to do with work, you know?
Let your brain relax.
I never did that before meeting him. Never did that. You know what I did on my off time? I edited videos.
Yeah, I know.
You watched me do this.
I know.
So
I'll tell you my schedule later.
So John has really been the person to drill into my brain that you have to have a work-life balance if you're going to continue working long-term, right? I think my body was built for, my brain was sort of trained and built for short-term bursts of intense working energy, which is kind of what we do when we do gigs, right? We do short projects, you know, to do with, you know, music, right? Like sometimes we get enlisted to do these projects that takes like all day, 12 hours a day for 3 days straight, right? Sometimes we're booked for recordings and whatever, what have you, art projects, whatever, right? And these projects are insane. You're working 12 hours a day for 3 days and then you're done, right? Yeah. And
like all or nothing.
It's all or nothing. It really is all or nothing. Like, so I realized that I had no training for long-term work. John basically trained me for long-term work, right? So that's why I'm like, I don't care what anyone says. I'm not teaching on Saturdays, not teaching on Sundays, and now I'm not teaching on Mondays. It ain't happening. Like, I can't do it. I recognize I've been very lucky, blessed, whatever is the word that you want to use, to one, have a husband that is this supportive of what I do, but also supportive of me living a balanced life. And also my students are also very supportive. I have one student in particular who, when I explained this to them, they worked so hard with me to find a time that worked between my Tuesday to Friday for them, because they were normally on my like every other Monday or so. Okay. Yeah. And she's like, no, I got to make this work for you. She like literally said it in the email. So she was like, I believe in the 4-day work week, actually. Like, I 100% like support you doing this. Now, am I really doing a 4-day work week? No, I'm not. Okay. I'm totally working 5 days. All right. But like, Monday's my fun day, you know?
Monday,
Monday, fun day.
It's a good way to start the week.
Yeah, it actually is. Because it kind of puts me in this sort of creative mindset right from the get-go, rather than being like, oh, the weekend's done, I have to teach now, you know? It's fantastic to make yourself like a cup of tea, a cup of coffee first thing Monday morning, and then sit down and do fun stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So that's how I'm doing my work-life balance right now. How about you?
Well, same with me. I have a husband who is extremely supportive. I think we're both very, very lucky that way. But he also very much taught me, or is still trying to drill into me, work-life balance. And that is still something that I struggle with. I work 6 days a week. And
that's not really your own choice, though. That's actually your work. Yeah.
Yeah. There are times where I work 7 days a week, so I will work 13 days straight. But I mean, I have always had regular day jobs. So this to me goes back to the definition of a successful musician. Because I'm a professional freelance orchestral musician. In order to be able to do that, I recognized that I needed to have full-time daytime work in order to have fun time work kind of at night or on the weekends.
Okay.
So that was the way I found a happy balance there.
Got it.
But because of doing that, I ended up working more hours in a day. Sometimes I work up to 14 hours a day.
Yeah.
I used to teach, I think, Monday to Thursday sometimes. I now teach Monday, Tuesday, potentially Wednesday, I think. But other days, like more towards the weekend as well, those are saved. Well, I save them for gigs, but they're also for emergency rescheduling of lessons. So that it's worked out that way. Yeah, work-life balance, I'm still working on it.
What are the types of things that your husband will drill into you? Because it sounds like the same type of stuff that John drills into me.
Sleep.
Actually,
sleep. Stop thinking so much about work.
Yes.
Don't worry so much about it. You can only control so much.
You sound like you're quoting John right now.
I'm quoting the guy.
I've heard exactly word for word what you just said.
Yeah. Maybe they need to talk.
I think so. There's something very wrong with their wives.
Oh gosh. You think so?
It's like learning how to live life as not a workaholic, and also coming to grips with the fact that maybe we have been trained to be workaholics.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my excuse is that, oh, I like to work. But then he says, like, yes, you like to work, but for how long can you work like that before you...
I've had the same exact conversation with John. Like, same conversation. I was like, but I like video editing. But he was like, you can like it. It's still work.
Yeah, it's like when I had a lot of gigs, like back to back, there are seasons, like Easter season, Christmas season, you get a lot of gigs.
Yeah.
Like every week you're performing somewhere different or playing something new. Like he says, I understand that you truly enjoy being a musician. And I tell him, like, I feel so blessed. I feel so lucky that I get to play with all these orchestras, all these ensembles. Yes. But I see how stressed you are.
Yep.
And how tired you are afterwards. Are you truly enjoying it?
Yep.
It's like, yes. Like, I am. But I mean, back to what we're talking about, you really have to find that balance. And help yourself, to quote John, unwind.
Yep.
I don't know how to unwind.
It took me a long time. And I'm still struggling with it. I'm, you know, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know exactly when to unwind. I've gotten to the point now where I've decided to just get people to help me. So one way I've been doing it is just by talking about it. So like one of the ways is like this, just talking about it. And so I talk about it with John, and John really helps me. He literally tells me, now play video games. You know, like, now do this, now do that, right? Because I clearly have no idea how to unwind, right? So the other thing I've started to do is, instead of kind of like just working on this by myself, I've actually literally, like, I am lucky that the students I'm teaching are adults too. I would say most of them are working adults. They get it. They completely get it. So I've decided to take advantage of the fact that they are all adults. And, you know, for the first 5 to 15 minutes when we're just starting the lesson and kind of getting all our nerves out and stuff like that, I have taken the step to also tell them about me, you know? So I've started to tell them, like, hey, I'm trying not to work when I'm not supposed to. And they're all like, good, we support you. So I got caught by one of my students for replying an email past work hours. And so
Isn't that nice?
She's so adorable. She emailed me back and was like, hey, it's past your work hours. And I was like, okay, fine. Okay, I got caught. Like, you know. And it's wonderful to know how supportive people are. And I regret not talking about it sooner. You know? Like, I had this kind of weird idea that I had to look strong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean,
Never feel
right?
tired.
And not look
Never
tired.
feel tired.
Yeah. And I realized that no one cares, first off. And second of all, if you do talk about it, everyone's like, oh my God, I understand. You know?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I've started to just get people to help me, right? Because I apparently need a lot of accountability to make this happen. So on top of having John basically train me like a dog to unwind, which I need, okay? The other thing is I'm just starting to tell more people about it so they can also keep me accountable.
Yeah. I think actually this needs to be a topic that is less taboo.
It really does need to be.
Like, it should be acceptable to say that, okay, you know what? This is past work hours. It can be dealt with tomorrow.
Yes.
I mean, there are sometimes situations where you have to deal with it now, but more often than not.
Like how we talked about in previous episodes, like if you're sick and someone needs to take your spot, like please spend the extra 5 to 15 minutes getting a hold of someone else and then transferring them to, you know, your director, you know? But then go sleep after, you know?
Yeah, well, just approach the situations with wisdom.
Exactly. Discernment.
There's no perfect way, but...
Like, if it can wait till tomorrow and you're not supposed to be working, you gotta train yourself to just make it wait for tomorrow.
It's about disciplining yourself, you're right.
Yeah. Oh, there's another way that I've been, like, helping myself do this. I turned off email notifications on my phone. Turned off all email notifications. I do not give my private phone number to my students. I just straight up tell them, if you're going to contact me, you don't get a phone number. Like, it's email. Okay?
Yeah.
If it is absolutely urgent, the thing is, I will not see it until working hours, but I will see it during working hours. It is legit the fastest way to get to me, right?
Yeah.
So I don't give them my personal phone number. I tell them that it's only within working hours, which is why I got caught by one of them. So via email. And then, but really the biggest thing is I used to have lesson email notifications on my phone. I turned them off one time when I went on staycation for a week. And I was like, oh my God. This is so liberating. I got hooked, I got addicted, and I never turned them on again.
Yeah, whereas mine are all on.
Oh, Carrie, I
I
highly
know.
recommend it. But now, it's really hard to cut it off if you don't have a good reason to. You should book a week off just for yourself and be like, everyone, I'm going on staycation, you know? And everyone,
I don't even
and
need to
everyone,
tell
like,
them.
you don't need to. But what I find is that if you tell people, they're like, oh yeah, that's good, we support you, you know? Turn off your notifications then. Let yourself bask in the liberty
Silence.
and the silence and the
And the
freedom.
rest.
It's going to get so addicting, you don't want to turn it back on again.
Yeah, I know.
But I have found that that was the only way that I could do it. And it was completely by accident. It was because I turned it off so that I would force myself to not look at work things during my staycation. Because I was at home too. So like I really had to work hard to not have anything work related come to me. Right. Yeah.
Actually, I did something different with mine. Instead of turning it off, I turned them all on, but I assigned different tones to them.
There you go.
So I recognize it based on it. But I mean, I hear it, and then eventually I go to the phone like, ooh, huh, okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not as effective as turning it off, I think.
You know, at the same time, like you have to kind of judge for yourself too, right? Like what actually works for you and what doesn't. Quite apparently for me, I have to just turn it off. Like I'm just so compulsive that like if I see that lesson email come in, I really feel like I have to answer it now, you know, even if it's not an emergency. That's a problem. I shouldn't feel that way.
One that I can identify with too. Well, work-life balance, people.
Work-life balance, people.
If you have any advice that you'd like to share with us, please feel free to let us know, actually.
Yes.
Let us all support each other in living healthier, better, more happy, satisfying lives.
And more sustaining life too, like a much more sustainable life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think a lot of artists, the reason why we go through such heavy burnouts is because we don't understand how to do long-term work. We get thrown into long-term work and we work at it the way we do short-term work. And it doesn't, it's not a happy time. It's,
Otherwise, we wouldn't be having these.
No. I find it so funny.
Even though we're laughing.
Yeah, I find it so funny that both of our husbands say the exact same things to us.
Are we that dumb?
See, I don't think we're dumb. I think we've been trained to think a certain way and to work a certain way.
Yeah.
And it's...
I can see that.
Yeah. I mean, I think we definitely should continue this conversation in the future. Because legit, this is the first time we were ever talking about this.
Yeah. I mean, we talk a lot.
We talk a lot, and we
just between the two of us, we talk a lot. This has not come up, surprisingly.
No. Like we're getting into some juicy stuff that I don't think there's any other way for this to actually come up in conversation. You know.
Yeah. So maybe we can save it for some other episode.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to stop. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty.
On that note, thank you for listening to, I think, kind of a longer episode. But if you are still with us, thank you so much for staying with us and listening. If you have any comments, questions, advice you want to share with us, or just your thoughts that you want us to read or to see, feel free to contact us at our email address. It is hang on. What's our email address? I don't know what's happening with my brain today.
It's okay.
Yeah, I forgot the podcast name.
Okay.
Let's play it by ear.podcast@gmail.com.
Hey.
That is let's play it by ear.podcast@gmail.com. We are also on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Anchor.fm, and we will also have a website. So if you happen to come across those platforms, feel free to leave us a message there as well. So that is all for this episode. We will see you in the next one. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.